Somehow, amazingly, I have become friends with the great American artist Robert Birmelin. I made a movie in 2023 about his life and art, which showcased many of his complex paintings. But in this movie, we're going to focus on his sketchbook studies of New York City street life.
Hi, I'm Robert Birmelin, and today we're presenting a selection of drawings done during the time I had a studio on 14th Street in Manhattan and later on near the bus terminal in Midtown Manhattan. I was not assuming I was making great works of art, but trying to catch something of the living, breathing character of what I felt on the streets.
Bob does not work from photographs, so how could he make these drawings?
In the morning, when I was walking to my studio, I made it a point to keep my eyes open and notice things. Notice people, notice the configuration of groups of people, notice the way a light fell in a particular area. And I tried to fix that moment in my mind. When I went up to my studio to work, I immediately took my sketchbook and tried to note down that moment as much as I could. I don't have eidetic memory, which is kind of photographic memory. But what I did try to catch was the main character of that moment, that place, that event. Of course, I found myself, as I proceeded on the drawing, using my past experience and my imagination to complete an image.
Bob talked about the two neighborhoods that he depicted.
Many were made when I kept a studio on 14th Street in Lower Manhattan, and others at a studio at 39th Street in the busy commercial hub of the city.
I asked him to compare these two places.
West 14th Street was a neighborhood of shops and residential. There were bars, there were restaurants. The life was more a neighborhood life. Variety of people on the street as always, but it had a less frenetic character than Midtown. When I moved uptown, it really was into the heart of the busy commuter area of New York. There were the commuters, there were the business people, there were the tourists who wandered around, and there were the street people, addicts. The activity of the streets of the city provided a variety of people, a variety of events, a tremendous theater.
Now let's take a look at these two sets of drawings, starting with the earlier ones, which were centered around his 14th Street studio.
A couple of weeks after September 11th, 2001, I went down into the neighborhood where I made a small study on the spot. There was a crowd of people there too, looking at the smoking remains. It was curious how silent everybody was, looking at the corpse of that great building.
Now here are the drawings that Bob made later, and they are centered around his 39th Street studio. If you're the kind of person who wants to shock tourists, perhaps you'd think that 39th Street would be the place to go. But is it?
When I had my studio in Midtown, I walked over to 7th Avenue, was about to buy a slice of pizza when along comes this lady in a pair of jeans, a camera around her neck, and topless. She was striding along with great confidence. What was interesting was that hardly anybody paid any attention. They ate their pizza, they were looking at their magazines and newspapers, they were arguing with one another, and she walked by as if it was nothing very special. I later noticed in the New York Post, she had been stopped by a policeman and she'd gone to court. As I remember, she wore a fur coat to court. Am I making this up? I'm not sure. And flashed the judge. The judge fined her and told her to do it no more. However, she went and sued the city and eventually won a $40,000 verdict. On a summer afternoon, I was walking down 8th Avenue. I saw a naked Hispanic man standing in the middle of the street singing. Of course, he was blocking the traffic coming on the cross street. No one paid any attention. He sang, and the crowd surged and passed him by.
But Bob did draw one individual who managed to attract the crowd's attention.
A great inflatable rat. I was very fond of that creature. He loomed above the crowds of people who scurried around him, had a presence. He was there to protest hiring practices at a hotel. He was huge, full of hot air. He trembled in the wind when it swept down the avenue. He was a character of importance.
I'd like to end this by showing you how Bob would take these sketchbook drawings, fueled by the power of his noticing, and make works of art from them.
Often when I was walking along 8th Avenue, I'd see these guys, women too, slumped against storefronts. And I'd occasionally give them money, and often found myself thinking of the world from their point of view, from down there, where you saw the shoes and you saw legs of people passing by all day, almost like a forest of legs shifting in front of you.
Robert Birmelin combines imagination and skill, profound empathy, and the awesome power of noticing to depict the human condition with all its texture and emotional resonance. His is an art of great significance. To learn more about him, please watch my earlier film, Robert Birmelin's Life and Art.